We are going to start our meeting. Are you ready to record, Mr. Hall? Perfect. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Harriet Tubman Elementary's LSC regular meeting for the month of May 10th, 2023. The meeting is called to order at 6:03 p.m. We're going to do roll call. Mr. Hall?
Nicholas Hull, teacher rep.
Ms. Holbert?
Emily Holbert, teacher rep.
Ms. Brooks?
Sharice Brooks, paraprofessional.
Robert?
Rob Dagnew, community rep.
Lori?
Lori Viets, parent rep.
Cindy? Cynthia? Michael?
Michael Weinstock, parent rep.
Sarah? Sarah, we see you. May?
May, student rep.
I don't see Cindy. And Sarah was here. There she is. Sarah?
Sarah Ghetto, parent rep.
And my name is Ileana. I'm the parent rep and LSC chair. We have established a quorum for our meeting tonight. I don't see Cindy, so I would ask Sarah if you could please take notes until Cindy gets here for our meeting. Yes, Mr. Hall?
Just a point of order. Is Principal Moore now on the LSC?
Yeah, that's correct. But I was going to make the formal introduction.
Okay. Just roll call. Sorry. Sorry to ruin your moment.
That's okay. That's okay. Principal Moore?
Bernadette Moore, principal.
Sarah, I don't know if you could hear me, to please take notes while Cindy gets here, please.
That's fine, thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next point of the agenda is approval of the agenda. I motion to approve our agenda.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Any further discussion about the agenda? We vote. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holbert?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yep.
May?
Yes.
Principal Moore?
Yes.
And it's a yes from me too. The agenda is approved. The next point of the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have not received minutes from our past special meetings, so we will leave that as an action item and next step for our next meeting to approve the minutes of all the meetings we've had previous to this one. So I motion to move the approval of the minutes for as an action item and next step for our next meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? We vote. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holbert?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Principal Moore?
Yes.
And it's a yes from me too. So the approval of the minutes is going to move as an action item and next step for our next meeting. The next point of our agenda is the principal selection process update and process debrief. I want to preface this by congratulating and welcoming Principal Moore to our LSC formally, and to our school, to the amazing team we have in our school. So Principal Moore, welcome to the LSC, and formally introduce you as our principal.
Thank you.
As you all know, this was a process that started in February 23rd when CPS notified the LSC of a determination they have made related to the contract principal we have, the prior principal at our school. That was on February 23rd. Upon that, on February 24th, the LSC sent out a communication indicating our entire community that the process to select a new principal would begin. After that, from February 28th to March 6th, the LSC members, we all received the training required in accordance to the LSC guidance, training related to the principal selection process, and that was offered by our LSC specialist. And we had a meeting with our network Chief Asaf, regarding the principal selection process, which is required as the initial steps of the process. That was between February 28th and March 6th. After that, on our meetings and discussions from March 7th and March 8th, we gave the community an update and we presented a proposed timeline for this entire process that was shared with the entire community. After that, on March 16th, work was done previously. Obviously, we had meetings, we had special meetings to discuss what the principal application or the posting would include for our school. And that principal position advertisement was posted on March 16th on the CPS system. In accordance to the guidance, or the process established, that posting closed on March 29th. After that, CPS and the Department of Principal Quality are the ones who make the initial filtering, if for the lack of a better word, of the candidates that have applied for the position. There were 13 applicants, only 11 qualified, and those 11 were sent to our LSC with the principal candidate slate that happened on April the 3rd. After that, our LSC, we reviewed and discussed the applications that we have received, and we did that between April 3rd and April 13th. After that, on April 13th, we had a special meeting to vote on the candidates that we, after discussion and evaluating the documents presented to us by the Department of Principal Quality, that we thought were the ones who should go to that first round of interviews, and that happened on April 13th. The candidates that we decided to move forward on that first round were notified on April 14th. The first round of interviews, because we had to give them enough time to prepare for the process, they were held on April 24th and April 25th. After that, the LSC discussed and voted on the candidates that would move to that second round. When I say we met and discussed, that means we received the feedback from all the participants that were on the interview process, and we all shared the information and the evaluation that resulted from those interviews. We discussed it in a closed session, and then we voted in an open session to who was going to move from that first round to the second round of interviews. That happened on April 27th. And we decided that the next round of interviews, the second round, would occur on May 4th. And that happened. I do want to say that that process, that first discussion about who moves to the second round, which happened in a closed session, it was discussed how many candidates were going to move forward, and we thoroughly discussed it in terms of if it was going to be 2 or 3 candidates. We finally decided, as we communicated to the entire community, that it would be 3 candidates that would move forward to that second round. That second round, as I said, happened on May 14th. The 3 candidates were interviewed, and we held debriefing discussions, and we also held a special meeting. And in that closed session, again, we thoroughly discussed what the results of those interviews, in conjunction with all the information we had received from all our stakeholders during the entire process. Because I want to state that while this was happening, we received feedback from all our stakeholders. So the feedback never stopped. And all of that, there are several pieces to this puzzle, if you want to see it that way. Because in the end, to make the final puzzle and the final decision, to complete the puzzle, we had to take into consideration everything. So after that, as I said, we had that special meeting on May 4th. And the discussion was very, I have to say for the record, and I have said that, I have shared this with my council members, for the record, I want to say that I am extremely proud of our council and how our discussions were held. They were very deep discussions, very well thought discussions, very pondered decisions. And to that effect, the LSC unanimously decided that we were ready to award the principal contract to Ms. Moore. And as so, we followed all the steps required, and we did on May 4th notify Principal Moore that the LSC was unanimously voting to award her the contract for the principal position for our school. The principal contract has an effective date of May 8th. So Principal Moore is Principal Moore since Monday, May 8th. I know this was a lot of information, but I wanted to start with what was the dates and the timeline of our process. As you can see, at all times, we have followed what was our proposed timeline, but I do want to say that at all times, we also said that this timeline could be modified if we understood that there was a need. And it was, because we changed the proposed dates of various of the interviews because of we had to give them more time or logistics in terms of like this, if they were available or not. So as we said from the beginning, the timeline was not set in stone because the process would also lead us. But the process was also led by the guidance. And the guidance allows for the process to be amended if needed. And that happened during our process. And when that happened, we always informed it at the moment it occurred, because it was always discussed in a meeting and it was informed right after the meeting. So I want to make that very clear. In terms of our stakeholders, also since the beginning, we were also very emphatic in the fact that all stakeholders would be involved in the process. There was a widely publicized survey for our parents, community, staff, and students to gather input from those stakeholders. The LSC also voted to create working groups to gather additional input from all the stakeholders. Everyone was invited numerous times to join a working group or to provide information, feedback to those working groups. You didn't have to be part of a working group to provide feedback. At all times, and all the communications all ended with the same thing. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please email the LSC or contact a council member. So at all times, we were open, and we did. We were open to receive any information, any suggestion, any feedback, any question, any concern about any of the stakeholders involved in the process. The working groups, as I mentioned, we voted to create working groups. We had working groups that were related directly to the process, as were the interview working group and the interview questions working group. The others, we have the teaching and non-teaching staff working group, the parents and caregivers working group, the equity working group, the communications and engagement working group, the TIES diverse learners working group, and the student voice working group. All of those working groups had leads. Each lead was a council member, as you already know, because we sent all this information. However, I want to talk a little bit about those working groups. The working groups were created to provide support to the principal selection committee, which is or was composed of all council members. This support was in terms of providing feedback and ideas of possible interview questions that obviously arise from concerns and suggestions that these stakeholders had. So it was very valuable feedback in order for us to create the questions that we would ask all those interested in becoming our school leader. So each working group had a scope. That's why we divided it how we did. For example, the teacher working group, which was led by Mr. Hall, thank you, and Ms. Brooks, thank you, also had other staff members, and I want to mention them for the record. Ms. Brickta, Ms. Brown Rivera, Mr. Foy, Ms. Holbert, Ms. Pearson, Ms. Pirillis, Mr. Wrench, Ms. Taguchi, Ms. Wallace, and Mr. Yang. All of those staff members were part of the working staff, obviously the staff working group. Each member of the staff working group signed the code of conduct and confidentiality agreement that we all had to sign as council members, because they were going to have information regarding the candidates, and that's the only way they could have it. So everyone in that staff working group signed that agreement. I want to make that very clear. The members of that working group received and all the candidate resumes and their cover, the documentation that they provided, their cover letters individually. And then they would give initial feedback to determine who they thought would be a good candidate for that initial first round. They participated in the interviews, and also they recommended for that second interview, and they also participated in the second round of interviews. And then they met with Mr. Hall as lead to debrief on the feedback and shared that with Mr. Hall, and then Mr. Hall shared it with us and Ms. Brooks and Ms. Holberg, because she was also part of that, to our other council members that are not staff. In terms of students, the student voice working group was led by Ms. Holbert. Thank you, Ms. Holbert. There were two staff members in that student voice working group too, Ms. Pirillis and Mr. Yang, who Ms. Pirillis is the student council co-lead, as well as Mr. Yang. So Ms. Holbert had them as support in the process of hearing the student voice. They met, Ms. Holbert, Ms. Pirillis, and Mr. Yang met with the student council members, which is composed of students from 3rd to 8th grade, to ask about their feedback for the principal selection process. They asked them questions. Our student rep, May McGannon, was also consulted by Ms. Holbert, and she said that she would provide that group with some feedback about what they thought as students would be a good fit, or some qualities that they sought in a future principal. In terms of the TIES Diverse Learners Working Group, that working group was led by Cynthia Chernoff, who's not here, is a fellow council member. Thank you, Cynthia. And it was composed of parents of diverse learners. And for the record, I want to name them too. We had Gia Super, Jessica Edner, Brittany Kersey, Rebecca Sims, Lynn Parker, Molly Conway, Ana Gallardo, Tina Hernandez, and Susan Olson. They met, they discussed, they saw it through the scope of them as parents of diverse learners in our school, and they provided the feedback needed for us to draft questions related to the diverse learners in our school and how our future leader would work with that community. In terms of the parent caregivers working group, I led that group, and it was composed of Tara Spears, Andrea Cordiano, Ana Gallardo, Patty Lenkov, Dorothy Lodes, and Brittany Kersey. We also discussed through the scope of what parents and caregivers were looking for in a school leader, what qualities that principal should possess, and how the involvement of parent and caregivers in school, how that leader would work with parents and caregivers to engage them in our community. The Communications and Engagement Working Group was led by Cindy Watola. Thank you, Cindy. It was composed of Robert, our council member, Patty Lenkov, Nicolette Andrews, and I was there too. And we also discussed how we could engage and communicate better with our, sorry, I'm being redundant, with our community. And we provided feedback about that for the interview question drafting process. There was an equity working group, which was led by Sarah Ogueto, our council member. Thank you, Sarah. That group was composed of Simon Weffer, Tracy Williams, Karen Bassaler, Tamika Jones, and Reina Hernandez. They also met and discussed what our school leader wants and needs in terms of with an equity perspective and with a scope in equity, and they provided the feedback for the questions that were drafted. So in total, we had, as I mentioned before, we first did a widely publicized survey, which was completed by 137 stakeholders. In terms of staff, we have more than 11 staff members participate during the process. We had more than 24 students participate in the process between the working groups and in the working groups. And parents and caregivers, we also had around 24, 25 parent caregivers work directly during the process. This is not counting the parents, students, and caregivers and staff members that also completed the survey that are included in that 137 participants as stakeholders. With this, what I want to point out is that this was a very open process, and it was always transparent. Everyone was included if they wanted to participate. It was always open, and there were numerous opportunities to provide feedback, to provide, as I said, ideas, suggestions, to ask questions, and to participate. So with that in mind, our council met. We discussed this, all the feedback we got from those working groups, from our discussions. We evaluated all those resumes, all those cover letters. We discussed the answers we got on the interviews. We discussed the information provided by the references. And in our meeting in May 4th, in our closed session, all of that was taken into consideration because they were all important parts of our puzzles. And as we mentioned in our communication when we announced our decision, we were all aligned into one direction. And we discussed that we had presented in our timeline that we would be having forums with the stakeholders. However, upon further discussion and knowing that we were all aligned towards the same decision, and since we've always, we've been committed to being very transparent and honest in this process, we realized that we would be failing that if we invited a second candidate to our school, to a forum, when something major would have to change in terms of our decision. So that would be failure to the process. That would be failing the transparency and honesty we've dealt this since February 23rd when we took this task upon us. After a very, again, thorough discussion, we decided that that would fail our process and that we felt comfortable. And again, it was unanimous that this was our decision and that this was the right decision with all we had for our school. That's why we decided in that moment to turn our forums into listening sessions that will be happening May 15, 16, and 17 with Principal Moore, and where she will present her vision for the school through the eyes of all those stakeholders that would have participated in the forums, meaning parents, caregivers, staff, and students. So we turned the forums into listening sessions. I think for now, that is kind of like a brief description of our process. I do want to say that all of this information will go out to the community with all the numbers and everything, and you will also have access, or we will also share all the interview questions, all the questions that were asked on the first round and the second round. So everyone knows that the information, the feedback we got, we used it to create those questions. And all of that would also be shared with our community. And now I want to open it up to my fellow council members. If anyone wants to say something or add something that I might have forgotten. I do want to mention a thing because Robert, our community rep, he he was kind of like in charge. We worked in the rubrics department. And if you could, Robert, not in detail, because of course we're going to present all of this again, as we did with the survey. But if you want to jump in a little bit of how we use the data we got from the survey and from the Google Forms that every member that was part of an interview had to fill after the interviews, just like a brief description. And thank you.
You're welcome. And you know, you have to tell me to be brief because I nerd out on all this data all the time. But I just want to sort of say thank you to the community for filling out that survey. Like, as you said, Ileana, we had a ton of folks fill that out, 100 plus. As an LSC, you know, I worked as a member of the LSC, worked to sort of present that or analyze it and then present it back to y'all at that initial meeting. And that was really critical to informing and understanding what the community was seeking out of its candidates and its sort of its next principle for Tubman. And as an LSC member, I can say that we use that information to sort of inform the sorts of questions and the sorts of things that we looked for in the candidates. And then being sort of new to this process and also a little bit a bit of an outsider in some ways, being the community rep, it was a neat opportunity for me to participate. And as you said, Ileana, like one of the things I wanted to sort of bring into this, and for those of you that know me, it doesn't shock you, but to like bring some structure, to say, you know, as we're evaluating these candidates, let's like make sure that we have a clear set of criteria so that we can be data driven, not just necessarily reacting on sort of emotions or sort of how we feel and have any sort of biases come into play. So knowing that, work to sort of look at a variety of different rubrics that exist for hiring principal candidates, for example, use that to build a rubric for Tubman and sort of saying, you know, from 1 through 5, this is what this looks like. And as you mentioned, Ileana, we asked the folks that participated in each interview to complete that survey for each of those questions to sort of rate those responses based on that rubric. And then after each round of this, again, nerded out on this data, to be able to aggregate the results across all these people to say, based on our rubric scores, which candidates sort of should be moving forward at each step of the process, and can confirm that all of the decisions we made all along sort of tied to the results of that particular quantitative data, as well as all of the qualitative data that we've collected along the way. But I'll pause because, again, I know I can nerd out on this with y'all.
Thank you, Robert. Any other council member wants to chime in on the process? Sarah?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ileana, for providing the summary of the process. You know, and that was a key word in our choice and how we worked together to get to this place and space in which we now have a principal at the school, which is a significant milestone for Harriet Tubman. With that said, you know, the work before us is and continues to be challenging, and it also continues to be an opportunity to step into this moment of joy and recognizing that we have a principal, right? We're able to have this qualified candidate, Ms. Moore, Principal Moore, and I appreciate the way in which we're able to work together and really be mindful of that process. Knowing where we've been and where we've come from, we still have a long way to go. I appreciate the way in which we were thoughtful about both ends of the process, going through that process and being mindful of, you know, if there is a point in time in which our process would change, what the consequences would be, right? One consequence being that we've created an opportunity for other candidates to be able to be in a position where there was firm acknowledgement that they were not in a place in which we knew where Principal Moore was in this process. Would it be fair to them, right? And, you know, Ileana, you said the word honest and transparent. It would actually do a disservice to the process if we were to move forward in the forms and the way in which we had envisioned them. What's also important, and I think in terms of thinking about and recognizing this process in itself, is that, you know, Ileana, you providing the summary really, I think, provides context that's needed, and also provides an opportunity for us to really look at how we can engage with each other around the process in itself, how we could do better, and I also think how we can also create opportunities to be able to really stand into the vision for the school and how we work together with the leadership of Principal Moore in taking the next steps for where we really want to go as a school community. How do we take advantage of this opportunity to acknowledge our feelings in respectful ways? How do we take this opportunity to champion this milestone of achievement that we've made as a school community? And then also, how do we find ways to move forward and build and evolve as a school community? I'm deeply grateful for, once again, who we are, what we represent. But most importantly, I'm grateful for our ability to connect with each other and really keeping children learners at the center of this process. So I just encourage us to really think of, just encourage us to in keeping our learners front and center. And also just wanted to say welcome, Principal Moore. We're excited to have you in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll have Lori, May, and Ms. Holbert.
Hey there. So I wish that everybody could have seen the nearly 3-hour meeting where we were making that choice to go just to follow what we knew we felt was the right choice, which was to hire Principal Moore. And we knew that there would be some controversy because we knew, not with our decision, we felt very strongly based on the working groups and the feedback and the news from people at pickup and drop off and in Facebook chats and all these messages, we felt strongly that this was the right choice. There was never a doubt there. The dilemma that led to such a long meeting was we knew that by taking away that some people would feel that we took away transparency or we took away people's opportunity to have more of a voice, even though, like Ileana just clearly laid it out, there are lots of opportunities. And one of the comments, I know Simone, you're here, was about if we had had the forums, part of it would have been able to see how Ms. Moore acted in that situation with all those questions coming in and parents and feedback. And in this case, in this particular case, I feel like we had 2 years to see how Ms. Moore was going to present herself and how they would handle grace and pressure. And because this was an inside candidate that was so strong and was coming in highly vetted from all of these working groups and all of these things, I'll just say me, I felt that it was performative if we were to take time to do these forums when really it would have had to be something massive. Also, I can't tell you about the other candidates, and that's also a shame. And now and some people might say, well, we would have wanted to see the other candidates. And I'll kind of be like, no, you didn't. Sorry, that's just me. I can't help it, Ileana. I'm me. It's my last meeting. So we really did the work. And I've done this twice. We really did the work on this one, and we were very proud. And from what my perspective was, I wanted, instead of for me, it would have been a waste of time. If we would have done those, we would have taken valuable time away from the process for Miss Moore to become Principal Moore. We would have had these performative forums where some people would have come. I don't even know how many, but people would have shown up and it would have felt great. And then we would have come to our answer and yay. But now we're using that time actively, and we are using that time to start Principal Moore off right, because we've only got a few more weeks of school. There was no time to do listening sessions and forums and then do another whole session after they accepted the position. Now people are going to have a rare opportunity to have their real voices heard. And for her to be able to sit down and go, this is, now May 8th was day 1, but day 0, I liked week 0 was one of the things that Bernie would say in her interviews. I feel like I can call you Bernie. Is that okay? I feel like they're going to have this really positive place of last few weeks of school, we're all going to meet and talk about what we need. And 8th graders who are leaving will be able to give their perspective, and we'll have all of this positive energy going into the summer, because for now, we are going to have, I'm not going to be here. You are going to have a really great start to next year, because you have an LSC who really did the work. You have working groups who really did the work. You have amazing parents and caregivers and staff. So now let us take these listening sessions and really take advantage of them and really share your thoughts and your goals and your visions. And that way Bernie can process that and put all of that into action, because we have not had this kind of action for too long. It's been 2 really rough years. And I think that we are setting everything up so that Bernie can start strong and keep it going. And you guys can not only get some momentum going, but maybe you can make up some of that lost ground that we lost during a pandemic and the former principal situation. So I hope that people can see that this wasn't done to hide anything, that we weren't doing it because we didn't respect everybody's opinions, but I feel like it was made because we really did respect the process, and we really did want the school and Principal Moore to start off on the right foot.
Thank you, Lori. May?
Hi. So first I want to say congratulations to Miss Moore. But I also want to say that I actually wasn't aware that there was any student voice working group. And I wasn't aware that there was any student voice committee meeting. But I do know that Miss Holbert did attend a student council meeting, and I'm sorry that I wasn't present. I wasn't at that meeting, but I wasn't aware that there was a student voice working group. And that made me feel that I was just, as a part of this board, I didn't really feel involved in this process. Maybe student council was during that time when you met, Ms. Holbert met with them, but I just didn't feel a part of this process. And in my opinion, I think those forums held wouldn't have been a waste of time. I actually think they would have been quite valuable to this process. And it just gives the community and these students just freedom to speak. And I think that having those forums would have been quite valuable. And again, I didn't know that there was a student voice committee working group. And I don't know if there was, or I'm just not remembering quite right. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, May. Before Ms. Holbert goes, I do want to say, May, that for reasons we don't establish, students are not part of the principal selection process. So the guidance establishes that the student representative in the LSC is not part of the selection committee in anything related to principal selection or budget, just so you know. But they're obviously, as part of the student council, you were allowed the space, but I know that on the day, I think on the day that the meeting was held with the student council, you were not available. But I do want to clarify, and for the community, that the student representative of the LSC is not allowed, I don't like that word, but it's not allowed to participate in anything regarding the principal selection or budget. So, Ms. Holbert.
Yes, hi. I wanted to say something before May jumped in, and I see there was something in the chat there. I'm thinking, like, it's twofold. One, like Ileana said, the students were not going to be voting on our next principal, right? Like, as it came down to like how the adults on this board were. However, we wanted to, of course, get student input. So, I debated, as sort of the offering to be the lead of that group, how best to go about that. I emailed May. We had a couple email exchanges. May had mentioned there was a student voice committee established by our prior principal. And I did not meet with that group because I was sort of unsure exactly like where to go with that, considering it was with the past principal who we no longer were having a contract with, right? So then I thought, what's kind of the best way to get a group of students together in short order, and thought about student council and worked with Ms. Perillis and Mr. Yang to find out when that meeting was, and went to the student council meeting on April 20th, if I have that date correctly. And whoever was in attendance that day, I could get the list if that's helpful to people. But I have the full student council list provided to me from Ms. Perillis, and I gave it to Ileana. So whoever was present that day, 3rd through 8th grade, and they sat in, like tables and groups how they would in class, and some great discussion was had in terms of, they of course did not have the candidate names at that time, as I don't believe they should have. They did not know that Miss Moore was up for the job. They just shared what they, we posed some questions as teachers and adults would, and we let the kids weigh in. What would you look for in a principal or a leader? What attributes or character traits do you think are important? And then as it relates more to like student input, I thought some important questions, and I have these in a document to share with all if necessary. What events or activities at Tubman, and something I was going to share with Ms. Moore as we move forward. It's just week 1 for her officially. What student activities and events do we have at Tubman that you guys like and want to keep? And what student events or activities or things do we have at Tubman that you want to, get rid of, or just kind of other ideas as it relates to their, day-to-day life and, things to look forward to in the future at Tubman. And wrote everything down that they said. It was a good discussion, and kind of left it like who was interested in kind of helping out with the student forum. And anyone who was there that was interested raised their hand, and I took their names down and said I would be in touch. Now, I'll be transparent here. Since that meeting and what has transpired, I have yet to be in touch. However, the forums are changing to be listening discussions, and we are still going to have the students involved, and it's just yet to kind of be ironed out, right? Ileana, Nick, Ms. Moore, we can discuss how to get those students involved. So I guess I feel like a little bad, and I'll be transparent in saying I did not have like a full-fledged student working group that met multiple times, but I did do my diligence to go to a student council meeting, which is 3rd through 8th grade students and leaders in the school who want to be involved in that sort of way, and got their input and wrote it all down and took it back to the committee. And having been a 1st grade teacher now at the school for many years, I of course have all the students' interest in my heart and brain, and took all that into consideration when interviewing all these candidates. So I'm sorry, May, if you felt left out. I take responsibility sort of for my lack of meeting with that group in multiple ways. But it also, like I said, was kind of a tricky thing because I couldn't share the principal's, candidate's name or resume or things that get more like sort of into the adults category. So it was a fine line that I was trying to sort of walk there. And I did the best I could in the time frame in which I had. So.
Thank you, Ms. Holberg. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Eliana. I was just going to add on to that as we were preparing for the forums that we were going to have originally, the classroom teachers have all had an opportunity to draft questions for, at that time, candidate Moore or any candidate that was going to be in the forum. Questions, and so obviously we are going to be we plan on using many of those questions in next week's student forum with now Principal Moore, because there are a lot of questions from students on what the principal, how they would plan on organizing the school and taking care of the students. So I know at this time, I think every classroom on the 2nd floor, so almost every PYP classroom has drafted questions, and I'm just still waiting on MYP. That was something that Ms. Holbert and I sent out a couple of weeks ago to all the teachers. So yes, we do have a lot of student voice involved in this.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other council member? So if not, I want to repeat that all this information that was shared today will be shared with the community along with additional documentation regarding the process. So that will happen this week. Our next point of the agenda are the reports, and we will start with our principal report, which I am sorry I didn't change from school report in our agenda, but principal report.
Good evening, everyone. And I didn't change it to principal report, so I still have it as Tubman LSC updates, but for the next meeting, it will reflect the principal report. Could everyone see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I would like to first thank the LSC committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to continue making a positive difference in leading our impressive school. I will continue creating a positive school culture that fosters the well-being of students and supports staff morale as we all strive to grow. I look forward to the opportunity to collectively create and implement a vision that will optimize the learning experience of all Tubman's children. Again, thank you to the LSC for giving me this opportunity. Our school mission. Our promise is to provide a nurturing, challenging, and authentic learning environment. We will instill within our students a love of learning by identifying their positive distinctions through academics, the arts, and athletics. We empower students to be responsible, contributing members of an international community through service and action. In our vision, as a result, Tubman students will be lifelong learners who are persistent problem solvers, inquisitive about the world, and have a strong sense of self driven by ongoing reflection. Tubman students will be caring and principled and possess a foundation of knowledge that equips them to build a more peaceful world. We will continue with our various reports from our IB coordinators, case manager, counselor, and PPLC. Ms. Perillis.
Hello, I am driving, so I'm going to do my best. I can't actually see what's on the screen, but I'm going to go off memory what was put in the report, just to provide some updates. As you might know, our MYP program is up for evaluation, and so Ms. Vincent, along with our MYP teachers and administration, have been working to prepare all of the documents and arrange for all the various components that are required for our visit. It is a remote visit, but it is synchronous, and so there will be live streaming of the site visitors who will be observing classrooms and who will be interviewing all of the MYP teachers. And so that is just some information and for you to have. In terms of our PYP program, I believe what's on the slide, and again, I apologize, is that just an update on our PYP exhibition for our 5th grade students. Our students have been working with their 8th grade mentors. Our 8th graders just finished their community projects, and so now they are serving, some of the 8th grade students are serving as mentors to our 5th grade students, because our PYP exhibition is a similar sort of process where they identify a topic of interest or a topic of local or global significance, and then they develop a plan to take action. And so our 8th graders are mentoring our 5th grade students, and today we'll be looking for approval on various fundraisers associated with those PYP topics. I will pause there.
Thank you, Ms. Perillis. You covered it all. Thank you. Our counselor updates. Is the speaker on the call? Okay, well, just a few updates from our school counselor. She is continuously going into the classroom with our social emotional learning for K through 2. She's doing a whole class lesson on overcoming obstacles, curriculum identifying emotions, and coping strategies. For academics in grades 3 to 5, she's working with the whole class on learning about your personality. And for careers in grades 6 through 8, the Naviance platform. 6th through 7th, high school investigation, and 8th, preparing for high school. We have our bi-weekly behavioral health team meetings where we discuss referrals, look at data and support plans for our students. Go CPS, the wait list, that is over. So students are aware of their selections by now, and our IAR and ISA testing is completed. Next, we have our case manager updates by Ms. Rosenberg.
Hello, everyone. Some updates for us is that during school allocations, we did lose 2 para positions and 2 DL positions. But the good news is that we worked hard and created schedules showing our student minutes and our student needs, and we're able to gain back both para positions and DL positions for our school. And then the other update is that today and tomorrow, I'm attending safety care training, which is a program that works with how to help students who are having challenging behaviors, help de-escalate, provide strategies, create data, and make sure that students are safe and teachers are safe, and ways on protecting students and teachers with specific training, which I will also be at tomorrow. And then the rest is just the same updates that have been happening this school year. And we are winding down and getting all of our last minute meetings in. And thank everyone. And we'll just make it to the end of the year. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenberg. And our Professional Personnel Leadership Committee, PPLC, Mr. Hall and Ms. Holbert.
Good evening, everyone. As many of you know, literacy has been our main focus this year on PPLC. And so we have made the recommendation to administration to adopt the following programs to address the curricular gap that we had identified in foundational skills at the primary level. To address our gap in phonemic awareness curriculum, we are recommending that staff members at the primary level use Heggerty program. The teachers have actually started using it already this year with the kits that were purchased earlier this year by AIC Carey. And the professional development requirement for Heggerty is minimal. A lot of it is included in the program already when you purchase the kits. To address the curricular gap in foundational skills in phonics, we have made the recommendation to go with Wilson Foundations. Again, teacher, and the other option was going to be Skyline. So Foundations is the one we are recommending. Teacher training has been ongoing through CPS-sponsored PD sessions throughout the year. And obviously we will be continuing to train teachers as needed and interventionists so that it can be used both as a tier 1 and tier 2 program. And our funding proposal for additional kits and especially the geodes that go with the Wilson Foundations program has been submitted to administration. And I know that Principal Moore is looking into getting the funding for to pay for the materials. Our next meeting will be, and it'll be our last meeting of the school year with this PPLC. PPLC is voted in by staff every year for a 1-year term. Will be Thursday, May 18th at 3 p.m. And that will be an in-person meeting because I believe tomorrow, right, is when the federal emergency status ends. And the focus of that one will be to make recommendations for all professional development for next year for our staff and teachers. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hall and Ms. Holbert. Just a few additional Tubman updates. We did have 2 school tours on May 1st and on May 8th. We had over 50 families attended the school tours, and I looked at our Go CPS school enrollment, and as of 3 p.m. today, we do have 25 families that accepted their offers. I am going to be sending out communications to those families that have not accepted offers as of yet. We're going to be sending out a second blast to them, just showcasing our school, and that communication will be going out on tomorrow, as well as we will do follow-up phone calls to those families who have not accepted offers as of yet, so we can get some more of those families into our school. And this week we trying a new assembly line for lunch due to state auditing purposes. Open Kitchen is requesting that our students come down and look at the items that are available for lunch. And so we are doing an assembly line, and it has been a success this week. The students were very excited, and we were concerned about whether or not it was going to be enough time for them to eat. But so far, so good. I will debrief with Right at School staff and Open Kitchen staff on Fridays to see if we need to make any changes for the upcoming weeks. Also, AIC Carey will be supporting us through the end of the school year. Financial transactions. I know this is very small and hard to read, but I did upload the document in the LSC folder. So council members, you do have access to the spendings that have taken place for the month of April. And if you just take a look, it's pretty much spending within 124 being transferred for various supplies and things like that, that the teachers have been requested and things that we need for our school. And this is a part of the approvals. There are no approvals needed this month. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Moore. Now it's the FOT report.
Oops, I don't have one. Sorry. I will prepare something for, we do still have one more LSC meeting before the end of the school year, correct?
No, this is our last LSC meeting, but you can always promote the gala.
Okay, well, the gala is on Saturday and the online auction is open and ready for bidding. So please let everyone you know to go and sign on and bid. The gala will be at Lakeshore on the rooftop deck. I'm looking forward to seeing, we've got a nice group already signed up and tickets ready to go. And that's it. I will send a report at the end of the year to the LSC just from kind of recapping the whole year. And I really would want to do that anyway after this fundraiser so that I can let you guys know what we were able to raise. And I did also want to mention that Cubs Charities will be presenting a $25,000 check at the gala to us. That's already been confirmed. So, yeah, that's, oh, Lori, did you have a question specifically for me?
I'll be saying something nice about you in a second.
Oh, yeah, I don't have, I didn't realize this was the last meeting of the year, but I did also wanted to add stuff from the gala. So I will do that and I'll send it to you guys and we can report on it maybe in the July organizational meeting if you have one then. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Lori, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to throw something on. Why am I not on video? Oh, whatever, my video is not working. But oh, there I am. Hi. I just wanted to throw on to the end of the principal report. It's fun to say that now. Thank you to everybody who made the Boston trip happen for the 8th graders. I'm going to also just say that for my diverse learner for Canyon, this was life-changing. We spent almost an entire year preparing for this because he's never been away from me. He's never done anything like this. And from the very beginning, especially Miss Vincent, she was like, he is going. And there was never a point where anybody made us feel like he couldn't do it or that they didn't want to take on the role of making sure that Canyon was successful. I feel like it was almost an entire year of people supporting him and setting goals. And in the weeks before, chaperones were meeting with me and Canyon, like, what do we need to do? And he had the time of his life. And I'm sure all the kids did. I was seeing pictures and hearing from other parents that 8th grade trip was magical. And I really want to thank our Friends of Group because so many kids were funded. They did, I'm going to be honest, they also helped fund us. And nobody was turned away. And for a school like ours to go on such an expensive trip and an amazing trip and to just be able to say, we will make it happen. Nobody is going to miss out on this opportunity because they can't afford it. And that, my friends, is one of the reasons that Tubman is incredible. And our Friends of Group and the staff and the parents and just looking at the fundraiser, like people chipping in to make sure that all the teachers were coming and the staff was coming to the fundraiser this Saturday. So I just wanted to say thank you to Tubman, everybody involved who made that trip happen for everybody, and good luck because I know they've got another group coming to Springfield. But it's just one of the things that makes this school so beautiful.
Thank you, Lori. And I echo your words. Our next point on the agenda, under FOT, there's a fund. Sarah, are you gonna talk about the previous point, or can I move
Are
on?
we still in FOT?
Yeah, but I should have put it separately, but I kept fundraisers there. But because we have a fundraiser request by our fifth graders MYP program, a little bit about what Ms. Perillis explained on her IB report. I don't know if Ms. Perillis is still on the call, but if not, if Mr. Hall, I see her. If they want to talk about the fundraising request for the fifth graders.
I'm here, yes. So we have several fifth grade groups that are interested in raising money. They actually, I think, were very inspired by our eighth graders. And so they're determined to put jars in all the classrooms and collect tons of money. And so I submitted to the LSC the organizations that the students would like to donate to, very specific causes around supporting organizations that help homeless men and children, an organization that supports planting trees or deforestation efforts, an organization that supports providing medicine to animals, and then an organization, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you have the information. So if you need more information, I'm happy to provide it, but that's an overview. And the fundraiser would run for about 2 weeks, and we're really trying to get the funds in as soon as possible so our students can move to the next part, which is like either providing the financial donation and or purchasing materials. And we do have a group who wants to plant a tree on our school grounds. So that's just a summary of all the fundraisers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perillis. As you mentioned, all council members received the information provided to be discussed today and voted on. Just for the record, it's very similar, as they said, to what we did for the eighth graders. There's some details about the fifth grade fundraisers that they don't have yet because they're still working on some logistics. So we are able to vote in bulk on this initiatives. So I will motion to vote to approve the fundraising requests made by fifth grade for their MYP projects.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion about this? We vote. Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Ms. Hulbert.
Yes.
Ms. Brooks.
Yes.
Robert.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
May. Principal Moore.
Yes.
And it's a yes from me too. So the fundraising request by fifth graders for their IBMYP project is approved, Ms. Perillis. Whenever you have more detailed information, if you can share it with us, we would be very grateful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Our next point of the agenda, Sarah, yeah?
I just had a few comments and questions from the school report.
Yeah, let's go.
I do want to also just echo Lori's sentiment about the amazing work of our FOT. I can't say enough about what they do and how they do what they do. So deep appreciation for that work. I did have just a couple follow-up questions in reference to the school report. So just really great to hear how it was so interesting because during our process in looking for a principal, we had to kind of affirm and question and assess, what actually, is happening. So it's great to hear, Ms. Rosenberg, about the work that you're doing around the behavioral health work teams. Could you just provide a quick summary? I know you gave us an update, but just a quick summary of that BHT team and their focus. That'd be greatly appreciated. And I have just maybe 3 other questions to ask, but I will pause there.
The behavior health team, it is comprised of I'm sorry, Ms.
It's good. It's okay. Yeah, the behavior health team is comprised of myself, our school psychologist, counselor, social worker, and school nurse. And we meet every other week just to talk about any referrals that teachers have for students. And then we discuss about students who have been referred, who have been meeting with our counselor or social worker, and we help come up with plans and how to move forward and how to just be helpful and supportive for teachers and students to make sure that whatever their need is we're finding ways and support staff who can help them. And then we did meet with the crisis team, I think last month, from CPS, the central office. They came in and they met with us to sort of just help form protocols and like give us guidance on how to do whole school crisis situations and support that we have and things that we have access to, which I think was really informative and will really help us with how we do things next year, as well as I'm doing this safety care training, which I'm also learning a lot of things that I can take back to our BHT team. And I actually talked to our school counselor on my way home from it to be like all these things that we can do and talk about, you know, and so unfortunately this is all happening at the end of the school year. So hopefully we can sit together and put all of our thoughts down for next school year so that we can begin strong with all these things that we're currently learning. I hope that answered those questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that point of clarity. I do appreciate that. As it relates to the PPLC, I know there's been some lifts that the committee has done, and I just appreciate us being able to kind of have a PPLC here at our school that's working and thriving, and really helping us to be in a space around reflection and the what I find as some critical work around the school improvement and how we do what we do and do what we do better. So with that said, Mr. Hall, in your assessment and looking at what we have in place and moving forward around the literacy work, do you feel from your assessment and just kind of getting the sense from the feedback you received within the community at large, that we're at a place where we're able to take kind of a whole school approach as it relates to literacy? You mentioned adopting the tool as it relates to phonemic awareness, bringing in the foundational skills phonics and the Wilson, and it sounds like a lot of this work is targeted towards the younger grades. What are those support? Well, it's two-part, right? So do you think we have kind of a whole system to address the comprehensive nature that literacy brings in, and then what does that look like for the older grades, our literacy piece, and then that would be my last question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So obviously once we determined that our curricular gaps were in those foundational skills, we really focused on, okay, we have to get that primary level where we need it to be so that all of our students can succeed at the age where they're learning how to read. And so that was our focus really this year. Then we get to a point, now that we have a principal, next year, obviously the next step is, okay, now we're looking at, our literacy, looking at it as a whole. Okay, what is our plan in the next few years to make it the best it can be? But really the priority for this year really was just fixing the gaps, just filling the gaps that we established through data analysis and the feedback we were getting from families and teachers and the student data. So that's where we are right now. I don't know if that really answers your question, Sarah, but so I think we're getting that firm base in, making sure there are no gaps in our curriculum, and then next year, the next step is take a look at the whole literacy as a whole.
Okay, so it sounds like we're looking to kind of build that foundation, the 3 level, but we still have work at the 4 through 8 level.
Yes. Yeah, that is an accurate statement. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you have any other questions about the principal report? Okay.
That's
Or the
okay.
reports? Okay. Thank you. So our next point of the agenda is public participation.
It sure is, and we've got 5 folks signed up today. So we'll go
Robert,
on.
excuse me. Sorry, Robert. I just want to point out that the next point is actually the review and vote of budget transfers, if there are any. But in her report, Principal Moore mentioned that there were no requests for approval. So having none, we move to the next point of the agenda, that is public participation. So thank you, Robert.
You're very welcome. So we do have 5 folks signed up today. I'll read the statement and then I'll call folks off. We can also drop them in the chat. But members of the public are welcome to make comments and ask questions, but must sign in to participate. The public is called upon to speak in the order they sign in. The public is kindly requested to limit their comments and questions to 3 minutes. Based on the comments or questions, the principal may address some concerns directly and, if necessary, create an action step for the LSC to follow up with the involved parties at a future date. While the LSC will do its best to address any comments or questions when necessary, more time may be needed to adequately address a particular concern. And I'll sort of tag when there's 1 minute left in the chat so folks can have a sense of what the timing is. The first person that signed up today was Simon Weffer, who I don't see any longer in the call. Simon, are you here?
Simone had to log off, but he said that he will email his comments to the LSC.
Perfect. Thank you, Dana. And thank you for the correction on the pronunciation there. Next up is Patty Linkoff.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So I just wanted to start by thanking the LSC for their continued hard work. For some of you, this is the second principal search in 2 years. The fact that all of you were elected by your peers and community members indicates how trusted you are as individuals, and also that we value your decisions as it relates to this school. I know there are those who have some concerns about eliminating the candidate forums because it felt like a shortcut to the principal hiring process. Please know your feelings are valid, and my comments are not meant to invalidate anyone's opinions. It's just my opinion. I wanted to offer another viewpoint, which, by the way, is also shared by many. Upon starting the search for a new principal, you did your due diligence in all aspects of the process. You advertised the position, CPS then vetted the candidates, narrowing it down for eligibility. I feel you were always transparent while also being inclusive to the community. There were working groups along with a survey whereby we were offered the opportunity to share our opinions. After initial interviews were conducted, you whittled it down to the final 3. The original outline was to have there be 2 finalists for in-person interviews. However, you chose to keep 3 candidates due to what you all felt was best. The point is, you did veer off the original outline of your plan here by choosing to keep 3 to move on to in-person interviews. Candidate forums for principal searches are not a mandatory part of the process. The LSC proposed the idea likely because it was done during the last principal search. However, as we have all since learned, forums are not necessarily a recipe for success. The original plan veered here again because after the in-person interviews were complete, a careful and what I have learned in this meeting tonight sounds like a deeply thoughtful deliberation occurred in closed session, and our LSC decided that they were united in feeling that Ms. Moore was the right candidate for the job. The other 2 candidates could not do anything additional to prove that they were a better fit than Ms. Moore. Rather than prolong the search and have the remaining candidates spend valuable time focusing on forums, they chose to allow them the ability to move on and pursue positions elsewhere. They were certain of their selection of Ms. Moore for principal. To be fair, Ms. Moore essentially has had a 2-year opportunity to prove how capable, resilient, and committed she is to this school. Thank you again to the LSC for your hard work on this and for choosing Ms. Moore to lead our school. Many of us are grateful and excited for the future. Congrats to Principal Moore. I look forward to working with you in my final year at Tubman. Sniff, sniff. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Moving on, Dana, you're next.
Sorry, technical difficulties there. Well, I mean, I'm sure it will come as no shock to anyone to hear that I'm super excited to hear that foundations will be used as well as Haggerty because, as I'm sure the staff is aware, the PA program is not designed to be used in isolation, and I was worrying about that. But I do have concerns about the way it's being presented, just as kind of filling in these curriculum gaps that we've identified. Have we not identified student deficits in reading, or is that not the driving factor? Are the units of study that was purchased for $7,000 in December still going to be used in classrooms in conjunction with Foundations and Haggerty, or is that being removed altogether? That wasn't clear. Are classrooms still using FMP at all at this point? Will they still be using it next year? Will all interventions be aligned with science? So by that, I mean, will Wilson Reading System be offered, as well as continuing with Just Words? Will students no longer be receiving leveled literacy interventions since it does not align with these other programs? And again, just wondering how, with regard to this process and the and now implementation, which is again great. Just wanted to kind of hear a little bit more, and maybe that will be discussed at the PPLC. Usually when schools are overhauling their literacy intervention, I don't know if you heard about Evanston just recently voted in a $1.1 million overhaul of its curriculum. As districts across the country are doing this, you usually hear about it in kind of a philosophical approach. We've recognized that what we were using didn't work. We know that we didn't know it at the time. We know better now. We're going to do better going forward. It's just, we haven't heard that at all at our school. And it's just a shame that the acknowledgement comes as it's a simple curriculum gap. And we found some curriculum that we didn't have. And so we're just going to put it into place, because that's not what's been happening. And we know that, and the science knows that, and the data that we have reflects that. And it's okay to say we screwed up, but we can fix it going forward and we can do better. So many things. Tubman can be a great, great school. This is my very last LSC meeting. I've been there for 10 years. I've watched my kid grow up there. I've had the privilege and opportunity to do so. And I have a lot of faith that the parents and the community, which everyone always says is the best thing about Tubman, and it is, will continue to push it forward. But things do need to move forward. Sometimes there are big problems, even in the school you love, and it's okay to acknowledge them, but then you got to fix them. And it's really important you do. And you should do it with kindness. And you should be nice to parents who are just trying to do the best for their kids and for yours. Thanks so much. And good luck to Tubman, and congratulations to Principal Moore. And I wish everybody the best. Bye.
Thank you, Dana. Next up is Karen.
Hi, everyone. I'm on my way home from work, so excuse the CTA in the background. I just wanted to jump on and say thank you so much to our LSC for all of your countless hours. This is above and beyond what your jobs call for, and it's all volunteer positions, and I know how much work you put into this, and thoughtfulness and mindfulness, and I'm excited to be your partner in helping, for whatever next level we're able to move toward. And congratulations, Ms. Moore. I'm just so excited for the community building opportunities that continue to present themselves, and I'm grateful for everyone's dedication and commitment. I may sound like I do at every meeting, but we couldn't do any of this without you all, and I'm so grateful. And one other big shout out to Mr. Hall and Misty and your incredible work on the musical, which just brought everyone to tears because it was so powerful and amazing to be in community again and to see what magic we spin with our students, and your dedication and effort. So thank you to all of you, and I'll be here as a partner along the way.
Thank you, Karen. And to round us out, we have Cheryl.
Hi, all. Just a friendly message. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cheryl Gold. I am a retired CPS teacher and now the education liaison for the 6th Senatorial District of Illinois. I'm here representing Senator Sarah Feigenholtz. My apologies for not getting to you sooner in the year. Hope to meet you all in person sometime. I know you've had a real rough go of it, so I'm glad to be here at this momentous meeting. And I want to congratulate you on your thorough and transparent and inclusive process in choosing your principal. I want to congratulate Principal Moore. The senator will be thrilled to hear that this business is settled. And personally, from me, Principal Moore, I'm going to say Mazel Tov.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. So that rounds out public participation for this evening.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you everyone for your comments. Next point of the agenda is our LSC student representative, May McGannon, her last meeting remarks. I don't know if May, oh yeah, she did.
Hi. So this is my last LC meeting. I'm graduating June 2nd. That's in like 3 or 4 weeks. I've been at this school for 11 years. I've been here since preschool. So I've been here for a really long time, and to be elected as LSC student representative has been an amazing honor, especially since it's my last year here. And so I just wanted to give some suggestions and feedback for the future student LSC representatives. So yeah, so I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak for the students of the school. I was honored to be elected by my fellow students, and I'm thankful for the space that the LSC board has provided for me. Throughout my time on this board, I have learned a lot about how decisions are made at this school, and I found myself wishing that I had more opportunities to be heard. Since this is my last LSC meeting, I wanted to provide some feedback and suggestions for how this position can be better utilized for the future. One thing that I would suggest is to take 5 minutes out of every meeting and dedicate that to a student report given by the student representative. Because there was no student voice committee this year, I didn't have an outlet to report any feedback from the students. Another thing is communication. Communication with the LSC board has been difficult because of the security of my CPS email. If LSC staff are going to be the only point of contact for student reps, then it is important that all the LSC information to be forwarded to the student as well as back to the LSC chair. Another thing that I'd like to get feedback on is the principal selection process. I understand that the LSC student representatives do not have a say in the hiring of a staff member, but during the principal selection process, I felt that I had little involvement. I had no clue of the candidates that were applying for this job, and because the forums were not held, I was not given an opportunity to voice the opinions of the students or ask any questions of the candidates. I know a survey was sent out to get student feedback, but there was no class time given for students to take it, and I was not in the process of developing the questions for the survey to make sure that they were relevant to students. And also, I want to mention that sometimes when people spoke at LSC meetings, including me, it felt like there was no follow-up or suggestions made in response. For example, in the beginning of the year, there was an off-campus fight between students. I raised concerns in a meeting that students wanted to follow up at school to talk about feeling unsafe, and that didn't happen. No one ever responded to that. Even though this is an elementary school, students do want to be involved in decisions made and want to feel like their experiences and opinions matter. Just because many of the students are young doesn't mean that they don't want to be involved and want to make this school a better place. I again want to thank everyone for this opportunity, and I do hope that the next student representative can benefit from my feedback and suggestions. Thank you again. This has been an amazing year for me, and I'm so thankful to be on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, May. It has been an honor for us to have you as a student representative at our council. I love the ideas and the feedback that you're sharing with us. we will definitely take them into consideration. You're basically the pioneer for our council and as our first student representative, and we want to do better. And so I thank you for all this feedback, and trust me that because of you, students will have a point on the agenda from now on. But first, we are looking for another student to fill your spot. And, you know, I asked you to help us with that. So I am very looking forward to having another student join our student council. I mean, us, the council as a student representative. So again, thank you, May. Please know that everything you've stated here has been heard, and we've tried to do our best to help the students and make them feel heard. And we will continue to do so. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next point of the agenda are action items and next steps. I want to add, Sarah, for the purpose of our next agenda, that we voted to approve the previous meeting's agendas in our next meeting. Also, we have to discuss our calendar of next meetings, but that will happen not in this meeting. So that's another action item and next step. As Mr. Hall mentioned, the emergency declaration ends tomorrow. So moving forward, our meetings are going to have to be in person. We could have the option of doing both, like a hybrid model, but that will also be discussed as a council moving forward. But just so you know, council members, it has to be in person starting tomorrow. I don't know if anyone else has another action item or next step. Lori?
It's my last meeting, so you need to
yeah,
post for another a new parent rep. And we also still need another community rep. So
yeah, we actually need to fill parent representative, community, and student representative for starting for the new council. So we will be doing that, promoting, advertising, and doing the process. While we're at it, so this is not an action item or next step, but thank you, Lori, for being on this council, for all your help, for all your valuable feedback. You will be missed, but we know that, or I know that wherever your next step is, you're going to do it with the same passion you did it for our school. So thank you. Sarah?
Yes, I echo big thanks to May and big thanks to Lori as well. It's been an honor and privilege to be in service with the both of you. And I'm deeply going to miss your energy, your insight. Thank you. Just a point of clarity around the the mandate and going back in person. Would this mean that members of the LSC would be in person, but we would still be able to have the allowance to have a virtual link for community to? So just want to just kind of call out that point of clarity, that there will still be an opportunity for folks to chime in virtually, but members are required to be in person.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then will we, in terms of the planning for next week, will that be a special meeting, or do we need to,
Yeah, I confirmed with Principal Moore that the dates proposed for the listening sessions, that she was available because she has some trainings next week. But she's available for those for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I will be sending out the council members a communication about that tonight, so we can discuss the planning for that. Any other, Ms. Hulbert?
Did we figure out, sorry if you said this, which day and time the student was, and it like what students, or all students attending, or how that was going to work out? Just want to you know,
Yeah,
make sure we're hearing the student voice.
we technically it's a name change from the forum, so all students will have a
Okay.
listening session during school hours, but that requires planning. So that's something I'm
Yeah.
going to do with Principal Moore
Okay.
this week because it's next week.
Mhm.
But we'll get there, and we'll discuss it as a council too. Any other council member? So before we leave, and I know it's not in the agenda, but we do have our chief here with us in our meeting, and I wanted to, for the record, state that we are very grateful for all the guidance you provided during this process, all the questions answered, that were numerous questions, because we, again, wanted to make sure that everything was done by the book. So thank you, Chief Asaf, for all your guidance. I don't know if you want to say something.
Yes, no, it is me, along with everyone else who has expressed their gratitude for your impeccable ethical process. I know that there were many people, including me, who were really hoping that Principal Moore will stay in the seat, because we knew that this kind of the sense that we have now in this meeting, the sense of order, the sense of peace, the sense of hope to move forward together, would be possible with her as the principal. So I am excited that the council made that decision. So I want to thank you so profoundly. I am going to miss you, Lori, believe me. I want you to be my friend. I'm like, oh my God, when I go get the next job, I need Lori to get me ready. I'm sorry. Forgive me
Well,
for taking
I just want to say
really.
that I assumed you would hate me during all of this process because it was so crazy. And I went to one of those, we had a friends of staff thing, and you gave me this hug and you were so nice and happy to see me. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Because you really were great. And it was a pleasure working with you, even though sometimes it was a little bit like, "Arr."
No, I secretly said, good. I would, you know, I have this other side where I believe that people really they have different ways of expressing what they're experiencing and feeling. And inside statements that might be strong, direct, a little bit harsh, there's a lot of truth. So I was appreciative because there were some things I could do and there were some things I couldn't do. But your persistence, your resilience, the period of time when you had to wait for this to be resolved, I think brought a lot of clarity to a lot of people who needed to see it. So I want to again say that I am sorry for all the sorrow, all the anguish, the time you had to wait for things to be resolved for the school. But I knew that at some time this would be over. And so this is such a beautiful moment, such a beautiful meeting. This is how Tubman is supposed to be. This is how I knew Tubman was supposed to be. So thank you, Lori. And thank you, May, for serving this important role. Thank you for allowing me to be part of it. I was really impressed with the whole process. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chief. I also want to thank our LSC specialist, who I see is on our call, Carolina Estay. Thank you, Carolina, for also answering all the questions and for providing all the guidance we needed for this process.
You're welcome, and I know the council worked really hard on this, so I appreciate every single meeting you had and every step you took for this. I know you did it according to all the protocol, so thank you so much.
Any other action items and next steps? So our next point of the agenda is when our next regular meeting date is, and that is to be determined. We will discuss that at a later time. And then we adjourn our meeting. So I am going to motion to adjourn our meeting.
I will second.
Any further discussion? We vote. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Ms. Holbert?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Principal Moore?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
And it's a yes for me too. Meeting is adjourned at 7:37 p.m. Thank you, everyone.